the feeling, first of all, needs to be acknowledged and accepted. You can't start with letting go, so you have to start with acknowledging it and accepting that it's there, because it's part of what is, the isness of the present moment, whether it's an external thing or an inner thing. It is what is. And to deny or to argue with what is creates suffering. So you acknowledge, you accept that it's there. Then how much time you need to be with it varies from person to person, and what kind of a feeling it is, and so on. And then the question arises, what is the link between that feeling and your thought processes? The person needs to find out whether the thought processes keep that feeling alive continuously, whether they renew by playing out, for example, a past scenario in their minds, by reviving memories from the past, by dwelling on certain narratives that are painful, repeating them in their minds. That gives renewed energy to the feeling. So the most important thing is to be aware of both levels. What's the level of my thinking? How does that contribute to the perpetuation of what I feel? And so you also then acknowledge that, these are the habitual thought patterns that go through my mind in relation to the feelings. And then you would begin to realize that the letting go, the most important step in letting go of feelings, is to cut the link between your thinking and what you're feeling. How do you do that? You do it by being aware of your thinking and realizing that thinking is pain. It feeds the old feeling, and the narrative, whatever it is a painful narrative. And you realize that you've been keeping it alive for some years, and when there's enough awareness, you realize that it has no purpose except to make you unhappy and to perpetuate that feeling. However, you need, and this is how you can help, or any counselor or therapist or spiritual teacher can help the other person by observing the feeling. Both the mental narrative and the feeling seem to have a life of their own. And if they have been in there for a long time, they don't want to go. What they want is, they want you to be identified with them. They don't want you to be conscious of them. So this is really the mind aspect of the pain body, and the emotional. The pain body is predominantly an emotion, but there is a mental aspect that the pain body needs to rise up into your mind in order to feed on certain types of thinking, in this case the old narrative. So you also need enough awareness to know that this thing does not want to go, because there's a momentum behind thought patterns that have been active in your mind for a long time. So there's a momentum behind it. So you need to be acutely aware of the process of how it creates further pain. And when you look through it and see that's actually what it does, then you've recognized you cannot be deceived anymore by completely believing in it every time it happens. In other words, you see that you create your own pain ultimately. When you see that, that's the beginning of the end. And then you can reach a stage when the pain is no longer, the feeling is no longer fueled by thinking. Then you arrive at a stage where you realize, I don't need the feeling anymore. In fact, you don't need to let go, because then when you do not revive it continuously, it subsides by itself. So you don't need to actually say, I must let go. It lets go of you, rather than you need to let go. It's because you're no longer giving it energy. You're no longer feeding it. So that's the process. So you need to let go is a bit like saying you need to forgive. That's another one like that. You really need to forgive. Okay, I'll try. Have you forgiven your parents? Yeah, I think I have. The forgiveness again is in a similar way happens naturally when first of all you realize that no human being can act beyond their level of consciousness at that time when they acted. So if you haven't forgiven your parents, and then you can see they behaved the way they did because they could not have done otherwise. My father, for example, I loved him dearly, well, especially after I became conscious. And before I became conscious, I had a love-hate relationship with him. And I found him very obnoxious, but there was love there too, emotional love. But then, when I was free, I could love him unconditionally, and then I could see that pattern in him that gave me so much pain, his uncontrollable anger. Mostly, fortunately, not directed towards me, but directed towards my mother. But the anger that was directed by my father towards my mother hurt me probably more than it hurt my mother as a child. And his anger was so explosive, it could flare up at any moment, so we were always walking on eggshells. And when I was 7, 8, I already knew, my mother seemingly never learned it, I already knew what comment that she made would immediately produce the anger. I knew that when I was 7, she never learned it. And so I was ready, I was listening to my mother saying, oh no, she's saying that. And so there was, I had a dream when I was a bag under my bed, and in that bag were the body parts of my dad. I had cut him up and had put all his body parts and then hidden it under the bed. And then still in the dream, at that moment, I heard the front door opening and my dad was coming in, and I ran towards him and gave him a hug. So that shows the conflicting feelings. And then later I realized where that anger came from. I don't need to go into this. Of course, it goes back to childhood, how he was treated in his family, the 7th child, the youngest child. Nobody wanted him anymore. The mother was tired. He wasn't given much attention, not treated well by his sisters, and so on. Long story, don't need to go into that. It came all from there. It originated from there. Anger towards his mother, and so on and so on. And later I realized he could not help himself. He did not have the awareness. He was got taken over by this anger. And the moment I realized that he acted according to his level of consciousness at the time, I didn't need to forgive anymore because there was nothing to forgive anymore. And that's a beautiful thing. So again, similar to letting go of feelings, when enough awareness comes in, the feeling lets go of you, and all becomes transmuted into something, an energy field that is good. And so forgiveness, again, cannot really be practiced in the same way that letting go can't really be practiced. It just happens, and then that's how it is.